I go to a monthly meetup with some friends to discuss Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And I was asked to facilitate Rule 9, which is assume that the person you're listening to might know something that you don't. So I get home, I sit down to write a few notes. Like notes that you could sort of fit on a small piece of paper. And lo and behold, the creative aspect of my unconscious mind took over, and I ended up making this video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the key elements to being a good listener. Now, listening is not that easy. It takes a lot of work, which means you have to have some reason. You have to have a big reason why you should listen. And if you're not motivated to listen, then the odds are is that you will only hear what you want to hear. So, step 1, you can't listen if you're busy talking to yourself inside of your mind. So step 1 should be to learn how to quieten your internal dialogue. And as a sidebar to this talk, I have a meditation package which shows you how to actually silence the internal dialogue. You don't need to spend 10 years sitting in a dark cave. It should only take you a couple of hours to learn how to do so. Now, part of quietening the internal dialogue is putting aside the images that you hold in mind and the feelings that you have about a certain topic. Because if your mind is full of your own thoughts, then it will be impossible for you to receive new information. Step 2, to be a good listener, you also need to be alert and in sensory awareness to whoever or whatever is delivering the information. So if you're listening to another person, then you need to be present to that person and not playing with your mobile phone. Step 3, there needs to be an openness and a willingness to receive and consider new information. I repeat, there needs to be an openness and a willingness to receive and consider new information. The operative word is consider. Step 4, which means you need to have a functional power zone. That is, you need to know what is you and what is the other. This is self and that is the other. And a power zone should give you a functional boundary such that you're able to keep the information out there. And after considering the information and seeing how it relates to what you already know, then you may choose to bring it in or not. Step 5, learn the NLP Meta Model. So as you may know, the acrostic is MLCCP NUS. So that's mind reads, loss performative, cause and effect, complex equivalence, presuppositions, universal quantifiers, modal operators, normalizations, unspecified verbs, and simple deletions. Now, if you listen using the NLP Meta Model, even if you can't actually speak to the other person to get clarification, you will at least be left with a bunch of questions that need to be answered before that you can draw a conclusion. And if you can question the speaker, then you should be looking to fill in the gaps, so to speak, such that you can build a detailed picture in your mind that makes sense. Step 6, which takes us to representational systems. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory, VAKOG for short. So each of us has a preferred rep system. So the person talking may be accessing their visual rep system, and you may be listening to their tonality. So then you have a mismatch. So to be a real good listener, you need to have requisite variety. Now, in systems theory, as told by Richard Bandler, the part in a system that has the most flexibility will control the system. So to be a real good listener, you may need to develop more flexibility in your use of rep systems, both external and internal. You need to be able to focus in on the person's body, their physiology, gestures, skin color changes, muscle tension, breathing changes, eye movements, idiomotor signals, and so on. You also need to be able to focus in on what they are saying, the actual words used, the concepts, the values, the ideas, the level of abstraction, and then map out the structure and relationship between those things, past, present, and future. And as well as listening to the words, the digital component, there's an analog component. The submodality distinctions of volume, tonality, tempo, inflections, accents, pauses, etc. You also have to be able to feel out what the person is saying. And in terms of requisite variety, you need to be able to track all three rep systems and shift your focus. So if you practice looking at what you can see in sensory awareness, that is the physical body, the gestures, the breathing changes, the skin color changes, the muscle tension, the eye movements, and so on. And then at another time, you practice tuning in to the words, the volume, the tonality, the tempo, accents, inflections, pauses, etc. And then in another session, another time, you try and get a feel for what the person is expressing. Then after a while, what begins to happen is that your unconscious mind will present to your conscious mind what is most relevant for you to track. Okay, so you learn to use all your representational systems to track the speaker and really listen to their message. In doing so, you will have to put aside your judgments until later. And one last point here. Do you remember the experiment with the gorilla in the room? This was where a psychologist invited an audience to focus in on the activities of a group of people on stage. So the audience had to track the number of times that a ball was passed from one person to another. And in the midst of this, a man dressed as a gorilla walks across the stage and out the other side. And the fascinating thing is that no one saw the gorilla because their full attention was on the ball. So when you listen, the more you focus in, then the more you will miss. Now, this isn't a bad thing because sometimes we have to focus in and other times we need to be a bit more, relaxed and open to what's in our peripheral awareness. And now we get to step 7. And then, of course, there are meta programs. NLP Meta Programs are perceptual filters that filter perception and determine your preferences and how you think, feel, and act. So when you listen, is your attention on the other or on yourself? Are you a narcissist? Do you make everything about you? Why is it there are so many celebrities who have to focus on self all the time? Anyway, are you a big picture person or do you prefer details? Is your attention on facts and logic or upon feelings? Now, I tell you, it takes a lot of work to be a really good listener. And part of that is that you have to want to be a good listener. And there's a lot of people do not want to be a good listener. They have no intention of listening. But anyway, I know you want to be a real good listener. That's why you're here watching this video. Step 8, and one of the most important steps to being a good listener is to get your ego out of the way. So Osho used to talk about getting out of your own way. So do you have a need to be right, or do you have what it takes to look at and consider information for what it is, information and data? Or are you looking for information that reinforces your current opinion, frame of mind, beliefs, and attitude? Now you'll hear people talk about prejudice. And my observation has been that sometimes the one claiming that another is prejudiced is themselves prejudiced. So what is prejudiced? It's making a prejudgment based upon insufficient information. So if you think the other person is prejudiced, perhaps they are. And then perhaps they know something that you don't. So perhaps if you were to really listen, you may learn something of value or not. So my challenge to you is to practice your listening skills. Just go through this video a number of times. The transcript will be on my website. Just go through it and just keep practicing and just notice the changes that it makes in your life. Please leave your comments in the box below the video, and you're welcome to join the Facebook group to continue the discussion. The link's in the below the video. All the best to you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.